Hello and welcome to the In Publishing podcast. This week, our guest is Hero Brown, founder and editor-in-chief of Muddy Stilettos. When Hero exchanged her glamorous London life as a magazine journalist for life in the country, she realised there was a lack of information for women like her who want to know where to eat, stay and shop. Muddy Stilettos was born, and over the last 9 years, she has grown it from a blog to the UK's biggest digital lifestyle platform for women outside London, covering 24 counties with 250,000 subscribers. I talked to Hero about why she never gives a negative review, how she's built a team of national journalists like her who've moved to the country and know their target market well, and why the recent mass exodus from London has been good for business.
And I came out to the countryside. Well, not even the countryside, to be honest with you. It was a commuter line into London. I was finding it very difficult to find things to do. I just didn't hear about stuff that was kind of interesting to me. But I knew there was lots of really good stuff out here. I just couldn't kind of quite access it. I couldn't read about it in the local papers. I just sort of thought, well, I'm just going to have to find it myself, basically. So I started Muddy Stilettos. That was the idea always, just to find really cool stuff that was going on and tell other people. As soon as I had that idea, I just got incredibly excited, and it's been like that ever since. It's just like it's an addiction, really.
Hero gave her top tips for anyone thinking of launching their own digital publishing startup. Get the tone right.
When I started Muddy, I always said it's like Red magazine but drunk. So it's kind of, because quite often on an evening I'd sort of be writing after a couple of wines, so it was quite sort of rattled along quite well. I guess once I could see that people were signing up and were sticking with it, I kind of knew that I'd hit on it.
Create a beautiful product.
Because we're all national journalists, we do take the writing very, very seriously, but we also have, that the site looks beautiful. So it's kind of a very premium quality product, but we're able to deliver that with a very local message.
Give readers something unique.
Maybe the only thing you've got to make sure is that you're offering something unique. I think unless you're doing that, you're kind of wasting your time. There's a whole graveyard of publishers out there at the moment, aren't there?
And be prepared to dig deep.
Anybody listening to this who's got a small business or a big business, you'll just know it is just relentless. There's very few days that I ever take off on Muddy, really. So I think anybody starting to think their own digital publishing venture better start making a lot of coffee and just digging deep. It's amazing. I wouldn't do any other job. I'm absolutely in love with it, but it's very hard work.
We would like to thank our podcast sponsor, Acorn Web Offset, the Yorkshire-based specialist A5 and A4 magazine printer. With high-speed web offset and sheet-fed printing, together with in-house saddle stitching, perfect binding and mailing services, Acorn can cope with the most demanding of production turnarounds. Acorn prides itself on its efficiency and low-cost print production. For more information, visit acornweb.co.uk. Hero Brown is the founder and editor-in-chief of Muddy Stilettos, which describes itself as the UK's #1 platform for affluent, fun-loving women outside of London. Hero, welcome to the In Publishing podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, can I begin by asking what you did before Muddy Stilettos, when you were just stilettos?
Well, it was stilettos because I lived in London before I moved out to the countryside to breed, basically. And so I was working as a journalist. So I climbed the greasy pole for a number of years in London. So I worked for the Independent on Sunday. I edited the lifestyle mag there, and I was deputy editor at Red magazine and did lots of freelancing and pretty much had 20 years under my belt in those kind of publications before I moved out and started having children.
And how did Muddy Stilettos come about once you had moved out?
Well, it kind of came about really from personal need. So I'd kind of, you know what it's like in London. It just goes a million miles an hour, doesn't it? And I came out to the countryside. Well, not even the countryside, to be honest with you. It was a commuter line into London, but felt very countryside. And I was finding it very difficult to find things to do. I just didn't hear about stuff that was kind of interesting to me. But I knew there was lots of really good stuff out here. I just couldn't kind of quite access it. I couldn't read about it in the local papers. They weren't sort of talking, to the kind of things that I was interested in finding out about. So I just sort of thought, well, I'm just going to have to find it myself, basically. And so I started Muddy Stilettos. That was the idea always, just to find really cool stuff that was going on and tell other people who were maybe feeling the same as I was, where they could also find it. And as soon as I had that idea, I just got incredibly excited, and it's been like that ever since. It's just like it's an addiction, really.
And so it's a great idea, but lots of people have great ideas. But you have managed to turn that idea into a reality. So how did you go about turning this fabulous idea into an actual business?
Well, I think I definitely thought of it as a business right from the beginning. And I think probably, although maybe it does feel like, oh yes, that's that's an obvious thing to do. Actually, probably back when I started it, it wasn't so obvious. Even when I came out here, and Muddy Stilettos started as a blog actually before we sort of, it's gone through quite a lot of permutations over the years, and people didn't even know what a blog was when I was telling them what I was doing. So it was very sort of early days. But I think I really think just having so many years of experience as a journalist and kind of understanding what I was trying to do. And also for me, Muddy Stilettos has never been, although it was a blog in the early days, it was never about me. It was never, I'm not one of those people who is there, taking pictures of themselves with champagne glasses and things like that. For me, it's from the day one, it's always been about the reader. So even if I, when I started, maybe I had 10 readers, but those 10 readers, I was talking to them. So I think I've always been, I'm constantly thinking about what they want, how I can offer something different. So I think maybe that, and also if you throw in a large degree of stubbornness as well, which anybody needs if they're starting their own business, I think that's why we've lasted the course.
So who are that target audience and how did you go about identifying them?
Well, kind of selfishly, it really was me, because because I was because I was thinking, well, I want to find out what's going on. Why can't I find out, where there's a really nice, cafe that's just opened, or somebody brilliant has just moved out somewhere, a fantastic chef has just started a pop up or whatever. So I was really talking to myself and thinking, well, there's got to be other women like me. So in some ways it was just incredibly easy, because the thing with Muddy is because we still write in the first person, so I talk to the reader direct. It's just like talking to a mate, so in that sense I didn't really have to think too hard about it, because I was just figured, well, if anyone's going to be interested in what I'm talking about, it's going to be people like me. And so it kind of automatically, I just sort of understood that they're going to be, probably between 30 and 55 in the main. They, mostly women, although I do get quite a few men actually, because they like the hospitality and the pub reviews and things like that. It was mostly women. Probably they were going to have kids. Most likely they were professional. The way that I write was always, quite humorous and a little bit naughty. I kind of always, when I started Muddy, I always said to myself, it felt like it's like Red magazine, but drunk. So it's kind of, because quite often on an evening, I'd sort of be writing after a couple of wines, so it was quite sort of rattled along quite well. And in some ways, I didn't have to think too hard about who I was writing for. I just hoped, I guess once I could see that people were signing up and were sticking with it, I kind of knew that I'd hit on it.
And so you launched in 2011, is that right?
Yes, but really quite. I mean, when it did launch in 2011, but at that stage, I think I was freelancing at Marie Claire, so I was going into London. I was doing it very, very, very part time at that point. That was when it was just for a bit, just starting it really, and would post perhaps only every couple of weeks, that kind of thing. But then it got more serious, I think probably about 2013, 2012, 2013. That's when I really started giving it my full attention.
So can you talk us through some of the key milestones? Because you went from a blog, which you were only updating when you could, to having a very well-established website, and you have a network of freelancers, if I'm right, working around the country, each covering different counties.
Yeah, so yes, it started as a blog, just a free WordPress site. With funnily enough, I came across my old logo the other day, which is terrible. It's like this horrible kind of, because it was Muddy Stilettos. It was a very literal interpretation of that. So the background was brown. It was horrible. So we started from this really simple site, and then it's had 4 redesigns over that time. I think it was 2013, 14, right? Maybe it was 2013. I started making money out of it, so we were sort of doing advertising on there, and then I started adding counties. So yes, as you say, there are editors in all of those counties. It's really important to me that that they're national journalists, B, that they live in the counties that they write about, so they really understand them. But actually, a lot of those, most of those editors now, I think with the exception of 4 or 5, are all on staff. They usually work part time because they're mostly mothers, but they are PAYE.
And so, how big are you now? How many subscribers do you have?
252,000 at last count.
And
quite sizable.
And it's free at the point of delivery, but you make money through advertising.
Yes. So at the moment we're a advertising model, which is a bit dangerous, these days. And we're like everybody, we're kind of diversifying and looking at subscription and various other bits and bobs as well. But yes, it has been an advertising model and successful in that way as well. So we don't want to sort of give up on that, but obviously it's smart to diversify as much as you can.
So if somebody was looking to sign up to your newsletter, how would you explain the offer to them?
Well, I would just say if you live somewhere, you want to find the very best of where you live. We're a real celebratory website. I'm not into trashing things. I don't write negative reviews. I don't write glowing reviews if I don't mean them either. I mean, I do things by omission on Muddy. So if we had an experience that I just thought wasn't very good, I'm not going to trash it on Muddy, but I'm not going to be writing about it. So people know it's a really sort of happy, positive, real good, feel good space, but also that we're very much about curation. We're about quality. If I don't think it's brilliant, it's just not going on Muddy. So therefore, we've got a high level of trust with readers. So the whole idea is, they get these newsletters from us, and we're telling them how to make the very best of what is, let's face it, incredibly precious time. Before COVID hit, we were all just going a million miles an hour, weren't we? And it's really hard, if you have that window, that tiny window where you think, right, I'm going to go out for dinner tonight with my husband. Haven't talked to each other for months or whatever, and then you go somewhere and it's not a great experience. It's incredibly depressing. Or you just sort of default to the same things you do all the time because you're worried about, there's nothing else. You don't want to take the risk. So that's kind of how I've always seen our role. So if somebody gets something from Muddy in their inbox, the 2 things that I want to have happen is, one, that it's incredibly useful to them, that they're finding out stuff they just wouldn't know anywhere else. We dig a lot deeper. We direct people really strongly, and also really hope that it raises a bit of a titter, a bit of a laugh, because life's hard enough, isn't it? You want to have a bit of a laugh when you read something, I think.
And so, because you have this model of staff journalists around the country, how do you ensure editorial consistency, and how do you work as a team?
Well, I think you have to allow these guys on the ground to do what they do. So I'm not the expert in Hertfordshire, but I have an expert in Hertfordshire. And that's part of the reason why you want really good journalists, because that their taste aligns with yours. I know that sounds a bit weird. It's a bit like it's a terrible analogy, but the McDonald's burger must be the same across all counties. So if I'm saying that something is really fantastic, well, hopefully that because our journalists are kind of choosing and they're curating the experience for our readers. So there's a lot of work goes into choosing the right person for the job in the first place. But then obviously we let them have their freedoms and they do their own thing. But then I have lots of editorial meetings. We share lots of content. And yeah, well, I kind of just have, and obviously I have access to all the sites. So we just kind of keep control that way, really.
And do you think you're the only media brand really catering to this market, or do you have any competitors?
I don't think we do actually have any competitors. I think we've got a really unique offering, and we absolutely specialise in these women who are outside of London. They are affluent, but not in a sort of super posh, hoity-toity way. They've got money that they want. They want to have the best experiences that they can, whether that is, buying themselves something nice or, treating the family to something. Um, we are really different. I mean, obviously, I think because we were a blog as well, and we still have this direct voice. So I, the editor, is talking to you, the reader. So from a regional point of view, we've got very, very sticky readers. They really feel that they know the editors. They really, really trust us. So we've got this incredible stickiness with the reader on a regional level, but also then because we're able to put all of those 25 counties together, and we can send out national messages as well for advertisers. That means that we're able to, but nobody else can do that, I don't think.
So you've made it sound incredibly simple, monetizing this idea that you had, but many people have tried and failed to do similar things. So can you tell me a bit more about how you managed to do that? How you managed to turn it from a blog into a thriving business?
Honestly, I think a lot of it is stubbornness. I think a lot of it is just sweating it out. I suppose the one thing, if I was to say one thing that I think we do differently to everybody else, I think it's two things. I think one, we really do dig deep and find the new and interesting. So I'm constantly, and I get very excited. My background way back was in sort of pop culture magazines, and I still get very excited about anything sort of cultural and new and different. So we really, really dig deep to find the new, the exciting, the unique, the quirky, and also, as part of that, we've got a very I've got a great love of small independent shops, quirky, funky, exciting people. And, so all of that feeds into the site. And then I think the other thing is, as I've touched on before, I think it's the humour of Muddy that makes it different. Its personality. It is supposed to be like your best friend who's slightly drunk telling you, oh, I know you've got to try that place. I went there. It's absolutely amazing. So that there's no other magazine that does that. And I think it's because we have an editor who talks to that reader absolutely direct, and that makes the difference. And of course, I think the other thing is, because we're all national journalists, we do take the writing very, very seriously, but we also have, that the site looks beautiful. So it's kind of a very premium quality product, but we're able to deliver that with a very local message.
And what about the revenues? You've talked about the advertising model. What sort of information do you need to give to those advertisers about the behaviour of your subscribers?
Well, I think mostly I think if there's two elements to it. One is regional advertising. So if you're a regional advertiser, you already know Muddy, so you're kind of you understand what we're doing. They obviously, we've got uniques and subscribers across all the counties, so things are just done on a regional basis. National advertisers, obviously, I think if you've got 250,000 subscribers all outside London, all in this very difficult to target ABC1 women female group, that is a clearly an attractive proposition, particularly now, isn't it? Everyone's sort of leaving London, this sort of mass exodus.
Yes.
So which has been, that's why we started Weekend Escapes. I think we started that in October, just because it just to talk to that enormous movement. And obviously the more people maybe out of London, the more people hopefully who will want to read Muddy Stilettos.
So can you tell us more about Weekend Escapes, which, as you say, you've just launched? What was the thinking behind that?
Well, we're really known for our hospitality offering, because our readers want to go to hotels. They want to try out the pubs. They do want to be the first to know. If there's a pop up in a forest, they'd be the first to go and try it. They kind of would be, excited to do it, or that kind of sort of idea. So, and of course, we go and check everything out for them. So already we would say, oh yes, you've got to try this. This pub's amazing. I can't believe I went here for Sunday lunch. You'll love it. So we really do try to direct them anyway on the regional sites. But it seemed to me that, so if we're doing that already, and then we've got this sort of mass exodus from London, this kind of move away from the cities, because in a celebration of what we already love on Muddy Stilettos, which is gorgeous countryside, but also kind of an urbane outlook, pulled them together. And so Weekend Escapes was born. So we, on that, it's really about, again, trying to help the reader as much as humanly possible. So we cover day trips, experiences, weekends away, but we also, as part of that, because on a weekly basis we know what's happening in an area, and we sort of have weekly what's ons, and we're digging around for the best stuff. It means that if you're choosing to go somewhere, we can help you with not just, oh yes, that's a really nice hotel, but we can say, actually, if you go this week, you're going to find X, Y, and Z is happening as well. So it's a much more of a 360 offering in terms of planning your free time than anyone else does, I think. And that's just purely because week on week and day on day, we know exactly what's happening in all these counties.
And is that an indicator that you also have a potential London audience? So people who are still living in the city but are keen to escape for a bit?
Yes, I mean, I think that's a benefit of Weekend Escapes. I hope that London, that it be for anybody who wants to go across any of our counties, and they would be able to go. And actually for our readers too. So, if I'm I live in Buckinghamshire, but if I'm going to go to Cornwall for the weekend, I'll be going on Muddy Cornwall, or I'll have a look on Weekend Escapes Cornwall and see exactly, I'll use it that way. So yes, if you're a Londoner, or if you're from anywhere in the UK, and you want to escape, probably London, most keenly, because obviously we're right the way around the M25, and in fact blanket coverage from Leicestershire down. So any of those counties, I hope that we would be the go-to. Yes, it's definitely an area I'd like to grow.
So coming on to the Muddy Stilettos Awards, can you tell me more about that? Because it looks like a very glamorous event. And has it been impacted this year? I imagine it has.
Oh, it has. Well, so
Yes.
last year we usually run them in April to May, and of course it was just bang on as COVID hit, so they didn't happen, of course, 2019. And we're going to do them in 2021. I hope we're going to be doing them for March, but we just have to, obviously see what happens with the pandemic. But the awards are massive, and they're actually, for me, just such a thrill that I still love doing them. They started as a way really to help small businesses that I saw in Bucks and Oxon, where I'm based. They just never seem to get the oxygen of publicity. So, you'd always see, the pub of the year or the hotel of the year. But there are so many amazing businesses like, beauty salons or art galleries and indie bookshops, those kind of people. And I just thought it would be really fun to do a real feel-good awards, totally free to enter for everyone. It still is absolutely free for any business to enter it, and always will be, because that's really, really important to me. And it was really good fun. We had like little cocktail glasses which would move as people would vote. So it was voted by the readers, and it just massively took off. And as we've grown and more counties have been added, we run them individually across all the different counties, and it's fantastic.
So we've touched on the pandemic, but obviously it's been a massive thing for all of us. But because you're covering things to do, and there still have been things to do, but perhaps fewer of them, how has that affected you?
Well, I mean, it definitely has affected us, of course, because hospitality, as I say, has been a big part of Muddy, and always will be. So that was, I think everybody, didn't they, got to the end of March and just thought, oh my God, what's going to happen? But actually, so it has been challenging in some ways, but actually I do think it's been the making of us as well, because we have lots of, we're quite lucky on Muddy because we talk to the whole lifestyle of somebody, and it's not just about where you want to go and eat tonight. We have a very, very good school review section. So we have our own best schools guide. So we go and review the schools. We do a lot of parenting. We moved a lot of our editorial, obviously, to much more well-being. And we've got various different bits of the site. So we did best places to live in the UK. We've just actually starting this next week, we've started an indie store to support those independent businesses up to and past Christmas. So there's been plenty of other things that we can do as a business. And I think it's forced us to work much more quickly in those other areas. So in some strange, slightly perverse way, it's perhaps even done us a favour.
So it's very difficult at the moment to look ahead into the future, but what's in the pipeline for you over the next year or so?
It is really hard, isn't it? I mean, I don't know, I suppose is the short answer. But I suppose the thing we're looking at the moment is the indie store. So that is launching next week and going through to the end of January. But it'd be really nice. I'm thinking that'd be really nice for us to kind of keep that going. And so that would be something that I'd explore for next year. Definitely, the Muddy Awards will be back next year for sure. Bigger and better, I hope. And actually, we're also introducing our own Best Schools Awards. So we think our school awards are a little bit like everything we do on Muddy. I think we kind of come at it with a very down-to-earth, honest, unpretentious kind of outlook. And so our school awards are about modern holistic education. It's not really so much about the sweeping driveways, and the facilities. It's about are we getting the children ready, for their futures? Sort of more holistic outlook. So we're really excited about that because we think there's nobody else doing what we're doing in that space. So that's going to be happening early next year as well. And then I suppose later on, we're looking at subscription models and how that might work for us. But for me, I like to add value rather than take stuff away. So I want to just really think that through because, readers everything. I don't want to mess with that relationship.
For somebody thinking about launching a new digital publishing venture, maybe in a similar position to you 10 years ago, but hopefully not doing exactly the same thing, what would be your key do's and don'ts?
Gosh. Well, I think maybe the only thing you've got to make sure is that you're offering something unique. I think unless you're doing that, you're kind of wasting your time. There's a whole graveyard of publishers out there at the moment, aren't there, that are proving that, and really good ideas that I don't know, they just sort of haven't sort of lasted. So that would be the first thing to do, and then I'd go and get yourself a lot of business coaching and mentoring, and make sure you kind of as lean as possible. I think the days of sort of large staff and we're now we're virtual again at the moment. We've given up our office and we're all sort of working from home, and just got to be quite nimble, haven't you? I think that's a word that's probably being overused at the moment, but and also I think anybody listening to this who's got a small business or a big business, you'll just know it is just relentless. There's very few days I ever take off on Muddy, really, truly, properly. So I think anybody starting to think their own digital publishing venture better start making a lot of coffee and just digging deep. It's amazing. I wouldn't do any other job. I'm absolutely in love with it, but it's very hard work.
Well, that brings me on to my last question, which is, outside of work, what do you do to relax? But perhaps there's not much of that.
Sleep. I don't know. Yeah, I sleep. I don't know. I've got 3 children. I mean, what can you do? You're just, you're constantly. I drink. I like to have a drink at the end of a night. And no, I do. I have done. I realised in lockdown how hard I was working, and I ended up doing, like a lot of people, the couch to 5K. So that's been really good. So I do try to just take a little bit of time and go for a bit of a run. We're having a bit of a family Schitt's Creek extravaganza at the moment, so we kind of do a little bit of that. And I mean, to be honest with you, ordinarily I'm out so much with Muddy that I just like to be very quiet at home, just hang out with my kids, and just lead a quiet life, actually.
Brilliant. Well, Hero, thank you very much for being our guest on the In Publishing podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
A big thank you again to Acorn Web Offset for sponsoring this podcast. If you're looking for a new magazine printer, then check out their website at acornweb.co.uk or contact Matt Carey on 07714 299 105 or by email at matthew.carey@acornweb.co.uk. Thanks, Hero, for being our guest on the In Publishing podcast this week. If you want to find out more about Muddy Stilettos, go to muddystilettos.co.uk or follow them on Twitter at Muddy Stiletto. Do check out the podcasts page on the In Publishing website, where you can catch up on previous episodes. Thank you for listening, and please join me next week on the In Publishing podcast.